Ever wished your daily commute could be like a go-kart race?
Would make rush hour a lot more interesting, wouldn't it?
Right. Well, get ready to channel your inner speed demon because today we're diving into the thrilling world of Go Karting for Beginners the KTips Way by Omar Aswat.
And let me tell you, Omar knows his stuff. He's a Motorsport UK coach, a champ in both owner and rental karts, and even raced Formula 4 for Qatar.
Serious credentials. So, with Omar as our guide, we're going to uncover those pro tips and secret strategies to transform your go-karting from fun with friends to, whoa, didn't see that coming.
Love it. And one thing Omar emphasizes right off the bat is that you don't have to be a speed demon to excel at this. It's about knowledge as much as it is about raw talent.
I'm all about working smarter, not harder. So where do we even start?
Omar begins with the fundamentals. And believe it or not, it all starts with your seat position.
Really? Never thought about that as being so crucial.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Imagine this. You're speeding into a turn, but instead of hugging that corner, your cart starts to slide, like those grocery carts with a wonky wheel. That, my friend, is understeer when your front tires lose grip. And often it's because you're sitting too far back.
Okay, so seat position affects how the cart handles. Makes sense. What happens if you're too far forward?
Well, then you're in for a whole different kind of adventure. Leaning forward too much can lead to that oversteer, where your rear tires lose grip, and let's just say those spinouts can be a bit dizzying.
So finding that sweet spot is key. What about hand placement on the steering wheel? Any particular technique for that?
Lomar recommends sticking with the classics 10 and 2 or 9 and 3, just like they taught you in driver's ed. This maximizes control, especially when you're navigating those tight turns.
Got it. Keeping both hands on the wheel at all times. Safety first. Okay, so we're strapped in, feeling good, ready to hit the gas. How do we actually tackle the track?
That's where the art of the racing line comes into play. Think of it like this. It's not just about driving fast, it's about driving smart. The racing line is all about finding the smoothest, fastest path through each turn, maximizing your speed and efficiency.
So it's like a carefully choreographed dance between you and the track.
Exactly. And here's where it gets counterintuitive. It's not about flooring it into every corner. Omar is a big believer in what he calls slow in, fast out.
Slow in, fast out. That sounds kind of backwards. Explain it to me like I'm 5.
Imagine you're approaching a sharp turn. Instead of going in hot, you ease off the gas a bit earlier than you'd think, allowing yourself to brake smoothly and maintain control. This sets you up to accelerate through the apex, the tightest part of the corner, and come out of the turn with maximum speed.
Okay, so by slowing down strategically, you actually end up going faster overall. Makes sense.
Precisely. And this brings us to another crucial tip Omar emphasizes, particularly for rental karts: keeping those revs high.
Because rental karts are a different beast.
They are. Rental karts tend to have less powerful engines, so when your revs drop, you lose valuable acceleration. It's like trying to win a foot race with a tired engine.
So you're listening to the engine as much as you're watching the track.
You got it. Speaking of the track, let's talk corners.
Yes. Those can be intimidating, especially those hairpin turns. Any advice from Omar on tackling those?
Omar breaks down every single turn visually in his book. For hairpins, he suggests a late apex approach. Instead of turning in early, you dive deep into the corner, get close to that inside barrier before hitting the apex, and that allows you to start accelerating earlier.
So it's like you're playing chicken with the corner, but in a strategic way.
Exactly. It's all about precision and timing.
And speaking of timing, let's talk braking. What's Omar's take on the art of slowing down?
He's all about finding that sweet spot right before your tires lock up what's known as threshold braking.
Threshold braking sounds intense. Break it down for me.
Think of it like this. You're essentially dancing on the edge of your tire's grip, right at the point where they're about to lose traction, but you're in control.
Okay, that does sound a bit like dancing a high-stakes dance with speed and grip.
That's a great way to put it. And it's this fine balance that allows you to slow down rapidly while still maintaining steering control.
So it's not just about slamming on the brakes, but using them strategically to maintain control and set up for the next move.
You got it. And this technique is especially effective in rental karts, as it lets you maximize those early braking and acceleration points.
Okay, this is blowing my mind a little, braking as a tool for speed. Mind blown.
It's all about changing how you think about driving. And it doesn't stop there. Omar also gets into trail braking, a technique often used in professional karting, where you gradually release the brakes as you approach the apex, again maximizing that balance for optimal speed.
This is next level stuff. All right, so we've talked positioning, racing lines, braking. What about leaning? Are we channeling our inner motorcycle racer here?
Not quite a motorcycle, but leaning plays a huge part in karting.
I always thought you want to lean into a turn.
Right. Naturally, you'd think so. Yeah.
To
Like you're on a motorcycle or something.
yeah, to stay balanced.
Right. It feels more stable.
But this guide is saying you actually want to lean out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a really important reason for that. And it has everything to do with how go-karts are designed.
Okay, I am listening.
So unlike your car, go-karts don't have what's called a differential.
A differential.
Yeah, it's a mechanism that allows the wheels to rotate at different speeds,
Right.
which is really important for turning smoothly in a car.
Oh, okay.
But go-karts don't have that,
Huh, interesting.
which means that to corner effectively, the inside rear tire actually needs to lift up a little bit during the turn.
Whoa, wait.
Really?
Yeah, it's wild, right?
That just sounds unstable.
It does, doesn't it? But that's where leaning out comes in.
Okay, so how does leaning out help with this whole lifting tire situation?
So when you lean out, you're shifting your weight to the outside tires,
Right.
which are the ones doing most of the work in a turn.
Okay.
More weight means more grip,
Makes sense.
which means you can corner faster, and that translates to quicker lap times.
So it's all about weight transfer.
Exactly.
Huh. Okay, so by leaning out, I am essentially helping the cart to do what it already wants to do naturally.
Exactly. You're working with the cart, not against it.
And that helps with the inside tire lift. Exactly as you lean out, it naturally lifts that inside rear tire just slightly off the ground.
Wow. Okay, and that's a good thing.
It is. It allows the cart to pivot more smoothly through the turn, reduces friction, and you can carry more speed without spinning out.
It feels like you'd tip over. I can't even imagine.
It's all about finding the right balance point.
I'm sure it takes practice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But once you get it, it's like magic.
All right, leaning out it is. So what about this whole neutral steer thing? That sounds pretty self-explanatory.
It is, in theory. Neutral steer is all about keeping that steering wheel as straight as possible as you navigate a turn. Sounds easy, but trust me, it takes practice.
Especially at high speeds. So what's the key to mastering this neutral steer business?
Omar breaks it down into 3 main steps: initial turn in, mid-corner control, and smooth exit. It starts with a quick, sharp turn of the steering wheel to initiate the turn. And then it's all about making those subtle adjustments as you approach the exit, almost like you're gliding through it.
It's like a dance, but instead of music, you've got the roar of the engine and the wind in your hair.
Love that analogy. And to help visualize this, Omar talks about a push-pull steering method.
Push-pull. Okay, you've got my attention. What's the secret?
Imagine this. As you enter the turn, you're gently pushing with your outside hand on the steering wheel while simultaneously pulling slightly with your inside hand. It's this fluid, controlled movement that helps maintain that neutral position throughout the entire turn.
Okay, so it's about finding that delicate balance between pushing and pulling, almost like you're guiding the cart through the turn rather than forcing it.
Exactly. It's all about finesse and feeling those subtle shifts in weight and grip.
This is why Omar's the guru. He's revealing all these subtle nuances that separate the casual karters from the true masters of the track.
He doesn't disappoint. He even has some cool tips on body positioning for straightaways and braking.
Do tell. Every little bit helps when you're chasing those milliseconds.
For instance, on straightaways, he suggests leaning slightly forward and tucking your head in to minimize drag, kind of like you're trying to become one with the cart.
I can see it now will be like human spoilers slicing through the air.
Right. And then when it's time to brake hard to lean back into your seat a bit, it helps stabilize the cart.
Okay, so it's all about those micro adjustments, fine-tuning your body position to maximize speed and control. I'm feeling the need for speed now.
Well, hold on tight, because next we're shifting gears to talk about one of the most exhilarating aspects of go-karting overtaking.
Yes. Let's talk about how to leave the competition in the dust. What kind of techniques does Omar have up his sleeve for passing those slower karts?
Omar dives into 2 primary overtaking maneuvers in his book: the switchback and the dive bomb.
Ooh, I like the sound of those already. Let's start with the switchback. That sounds strategic.
Picture this. You're approaching a corner, and there's a slower cart ahead of you, hugging that inside line. Instead of following directly behind, you position your cart on the outside, taking a slightly wider line.
Okay, so far so good. What happens next?
Here's where the strategy comes in. You brake a bit earlier than you normally would, anticipating that the driver ahead might overshoot the corner. And as they drift a little wide, that gap opens up, allowing you to swoop in and take the lead.
It's all about timing and anticipating your opponent's move. Love it. Okay, now for the dive bomb. That sounds a bit riskier, am I right?
It definitely requires more precision, that's for sure. The dive bomb is all about late braking, hugging the inside line as you approach the corner, which basically forces your opponent to either yield or risk a collision.
High risk, high reward. I can see how mastering this maneuver could really shake things up on the track.
Exactly. But Omar is big on safety here. It's not about reckless driving. It's about calculated risks and understanding the limits of your cart and your skills.
Right, the goal is to win the race, not cause a pileup. So we've covered those bold overtaking maneuvers, but what about defensive driving? How do you protect your lead when someone's hot on your tail?
You know, you'd think the key to defense would be unpredictability. But Omar's advice is actually quite simple. Stick to the racing line.
Really? I would thought mixing things up would make it harder for someone to pass you.
It's all about consistency. Most drivers, especially those who are new to the track, will inevitably make small mistakes, drifting slightly off that ideal line. By maintaining your focus and hitting those apexes perfectly, you force your opponents to make the first move, which often opens up opportunities for you to extend your lead.
So it's about playing in the long game, letting your opponent's errors become your advantage. That's smart. Any other defensive driving tips?
Protecting your inside line is crucial, especially going into those tight corners. If you sense a driver trying to make a move, subtly shift your cart towards the inside, making it harder for them to squeeze past.
Subtle yet effective. I like it.
Exactly. It's about being strategic and assertive, not aggressive or reckless.
Safety first. Okay, we've covered overtaking and defending, those adrenaline-pumping moments on the track. But what happens when the weather takes a turn and the skies open up? Talk to me about wet weather driving.
Ah, yes, rain the great equalizer. But have no fear, Omar dedicates a whole chapter to this.
Yeah.
Chapter 7 is all about conquering those slippery conditions.
You know, even in a regular car, rain makes me a bit nervous. What are some of the biggest differences drivers need to be aware of when go-karting in the wet?
The biggest thing is just adjusting your expectations. Those tires that grip like glue on a dry track, yeah, they turn into slippery shoes when it rains.
So you're basically driving on ice skates.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Omar says the key is understanding that you won't be reaching those same speeds or cornering with the same aggression in the wet. It's about adapting your entire driving style to the conditions.
Okay, adaptation is key. What are some of Omar's top tips for not spinning out in the rain?
One of the most important is to find what he calls the wet line.
The wet line. Is that some kind of secret path to hydroplaning victory?
Not quite.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that in the rain, the outer edges of corners, the areas that are less used in dry conditions, can actually provide better traction.
Wait, really? Why is that?
It's all about the rubber. In those outer areas, the racing rubber hasn't built up as much, so they're less slick.
So you're going against what feels natural, taking a wider berth instead of hugging the inside. Fascinating. Okay, we've adjusted our expectations, found this magical wet line. What about braking? I imagine that's a whole different ballgame on a slick track.
Absolutely. Omar has a whole section on wet weather braking, and one technique that I find super interesting is cadence braking.
Cadence braking. That sounds more like something you do in a spin class, not on a racetrack. What's the deal with that?
I know, right? Sounds strange, but trust me, it works. Basically, it involves rapidly pumping the brakes.
It's like you're sending some kind of urgent message in Morse code.
You got it. This pumping action creates a sort of human ABS, helping you slow down without those tires locking up.
So it's all about maintaining that delicate balance between slowing down and staying in control.
Exactly. And Omar says this technique is super helpful when entering those slick corners, as it can help you recover from any initial understeer.
This is pure gold. Omar's like that wise racing mentor everyone wishes they had. Okay, so we're adapting to the rain, finding that wet line, mastering cadence braking. Anything else that can help us conquer those slippery conditions?
A lot of it comes down to mindset. Omar talks about the mental game of wet weather driving. It can be pretty nerve-wracking out there.
I can imagine when those speeds are involved and the track is slick, every decision feels amplified.
Exactly. Omar emphasizes that it's not about pushing your limits in the rain. It's about staying smooth, staying consistent, and above all, avoiding those costly mistakes.
It's a mental game as much as it is a physical one, it seems.
You got it. Think of it like this. Instead of fighting the rain, you're working with it, finding a rhythm even in those challenging conditions.
Embrace the chaos. Okay, switching gears now to a topic that I know a lot of people have opinions on, weight and speed. Is it true that the lighter you are, the faster you'll be?
Ah, the age-old debate. It's something Omar dives into in Chapter 8, where he explores that complex relationship between weight, speed, and of course those all-important lap times.
All right, lay it on me. What's the verdict? Are we all doomed to be slower if we don't fit a certain weight profile?
It's not as simple as that. One of the most interesting things Omar digs into is this concept of ballast weight.
Ballast weight. What is that? Like those weighted vests people wear at the gym?
Kind of. It's extra weight that sometimes gets added to a cart, usually to meet minimum weight requirements for fairness and consistency.
Ah, so it's about leveling the playing field, making sure everyone's competing on a somewhat even playing field.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. The effect of that extra weight can be totally different depending on whether you're racing those outdoor petrol carts versus the indoor electric ones.
Okay, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Let's break it down. How does this ballast weight affect lap times?
In outdoor petrol karting, it typically has a negative impact. Omar talks about how they did these experiments at a track and found that every 10 kilograms of added weight added about zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.8 seconds to their lap times.
Wow, that's significant. So for those of us who aren't math whizzes, that means even a small amount of extra weight can really slow you down.
You got it. It all comes down to physics, really.
Mm.
That extra weight reduces acceleration, especially coming out of those corners. It's like trying to sprint with a backpack full of rocks.
I can't imagine. So if you're someone who's naturally lightweight, maybe outdoor petrol karting is the way to go.
It might give you a slight edge. But now, here comes the plot twist. With indoor electric karting, it's not so straightforward.
Really? Now you've got me on the edge of my seat. What's the difference?
Electric karts are heavier by design, and they have this instant torque, so they can actually benefit from some added weight. It provides more stability, which is super important on those tight, twisty indoor circuits.
Wait a minute, so you're telling me that being a bit heavier might actually be an advantage in electric karting? My mind is blown.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's all about adapting your driving style to the specific conditions and understanding the dynamics at play.
This is why I love deep dives. Like this, they completely change your perspective.
Right. And the best part is that no matter what your weight or the type of karting you prefer, there are always techniques and strategies you can use to improve your performance. Omar really emphasizes that.
All right, spill the beans. What kind of strategies are we talking about here, especially for us heavier folks?
Omar's got you covered. He recommends focusing on 3 key things: line selection, braking techniques, and smooth driving.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. Line selection, what does that entail?
It's all about being strategic with your path around the track, finding those shortcuts, taking tighter lines through corners to make up for that slightly reduced acceleration.
So it's like finding those hidden cheat codes in a video game.
Exactly. And when it comes to braking, heavier drivers, especially in those sharp hairpin turns, might actually benefit from easing off the throttle gradually instead of slamming on the brakes.
No, that's counterintuitive. Why is that?
Heavier karts, they just take a bit longer to slow down and speed back up. That's just physics. By gently easing off the gas, you can actually carry more speed through those corners without losing as much momentum.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And finally, for those smooth operators out there, especially in electric karts, Omar emphasizes that you can really use that extra weight to your advantage.
How do you do that?
It's all about being deliberate with your steering, finding a rhythm with your acceleration. Those heavier karts, especially the electric ones, tend to have a bit more grip. So if you can master that smooth, controlled driving style, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
It's all about finding what works best for you,
You
right?
got it. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to karting. It's all about understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, adapting to the specific conditions, and of course, putting in that practice.
I love it. So whether you're a featherweight speedster or a heavyweight champ, there's a path to victory out there for you.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll see you out there on the track one day, putting all this newfound knowledge into practice.
I'd be up for the challenge. But before we all rush out to grab our helmets and gloves, let's talk about how to actually get started in the karting world. Is it as simple as just showing up at a track and hopping in a cart?
If only it were that easy. Omar does a great job of breaking down the different paths you can take to kickstart your karting journey, and it all comes down to one key factor: your budget.
Ah, yes, budget, the eternal constraint. So are we talking about a sport that's only accessible to the wealthy? Or can us regular folks get in on the action too?
The good news is that karting is surprisingly accessible. Omar outlines 2 main paths: rental karting and owner karting. Rental karting is exactly what it sounds like. You rent a kart from the track.
That sounds perfect for those of us who are curious but not quite ready to invest in a kart of our own. What kind of budget should someone be looking at for rental karting?
Omar says that with just a couple $100s a month, you can comfortably get your karting fix. That's enough for some regular practice sessions, even entry-level competitions if you're feeling adventurous.
That's not bad at all. It's great to know there's an option for those of us who want a more casual, budget-friendly way to experience the thrill of karting.
Exactly. Plus, it's a great way to dip your toes in the water, build those foundational skills, and maybe even meet some fellow karting enthusiasts along the way.
Speaking of fellow enthusiasts, what about group events? I could see that being a blast, a little friendly competition. Do most tracks offer packages for that kind of thing?
They do. A lot of tracks offer group packages or even organized races, which are perfect for birthdays, corporate outings, bachelor parties, you name it.
Love it. Okay, so we've got the basics of rental karting down, but for those who are ready to take their karting to the next level, what's involved in this whole owner karting thing?
Owner karting is a whole different ballgame. It's about purchasing your own kart, joining those more prestigious championships, the whole 9 yards.
So we're talking serious commitment here.
Absolutely. But with that commitment comes incredible rewards. Omar talks about owner karting as a stepping stone for those with aspirations of a career in motorsports.
Whoa, so it's not just a hobby, it could be the start of something big.
You got it. Some drivers even make the jump to Formula One from the world of karting.
No way, that's incredible. Okay, so for those who are intrigued but maybe a bit intimidated by this whole owner karting thing, what are some things to consider before taking the plunge?
First and foremost, be prepared for a significant financial investment. And I'm not just talking about the cost of the kart itself, although that can be pretty hefty.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the maintenance, the repairs, the travel, it all adds up,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Omar breaks it all down in the book, and let's just say it's not for the faint of heart.
Okay, give us a ballpark figure. What kind of budget should aspiring owner karters be mentally preparing for?
A brand new, top-of-the-line kart can set you back around $9,000.
Okay, yeah, that's a serious chunk of change. What about for those who aren't quite ready to shell out that kind of cash right away? Are there more budget-friendly options?
Absolutely. A decent used kart will cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,500. Still an investment, but definitely a more manageable starting point for some.
Okay, that's good to know. But even with a used cart, there are still those ongoing expenses, right?
Oh, absolutely. Tires, spare parts, fuel, regular maintenance. Omar estimates these costs can easily run a couple $100s a month, depending on how often you're racing and the overall condition of your kart.
Okay, so this is a commitment financially and time-wise.
Exactly. And that's not even factoring in the cost of joining a karting team, which a lot of drivers choose to do for that extra level of support and expertise.
A karting team. Tell me more about that. I had no idea that was even a thing.
Yeah, it's really cool. Many owner karters join established teams that provide everything from technical assistance to personalized coaching, even logistical support during those big races. It's like having your own pit crew.
That's awesome. I bet those team fees aren't cheap, though.
You're telling me. Omar estimates that joining a top-notch team can easily add thousands of dollars to your budget each season.
Wow. Okay, so this is serious business for those who are serious about competitive karting.
It is. But for those with that passion, dedication, and yes, those financial resources, owner karting can be an incredible journey, full of adrenaline-pumping challenges, hard-fought victories, and the thrill of chasing those checkered flags.
Okay, I'm inspired. So we've got rental karting, owner karting. Sounds like there's a path for everyone out there.
Exactly. Omar's book is your ultimate guide no matter where you are on your go-karting journey.
Love it. Okay, before we shift gears, I'm curious about something you mentioned earlier, track time. Is that just a fancy way of saying practice makes perfect?
It's more than just racking up laps.
Yeah.
Omar is a big believer in making the most of those track sessions.
So it's quality over quantity.
Absolutely. He recommends aiming for at least 2 practice sessions each time you hit the track. Focus on consistency, gradually building up those skills instead of trying to go from 0 to 60 in one session.
So no need to burn ourselves out on day one?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. Even those Formula One drivers, they don't just hop in their cars and go full speed on race day without any practice, right?
Yeah.
They spend hours upon hours honing their skills.
That's a good point. Speaking of reaching those elite levels, does Omar talk about opportunities for those who are killing it in rental karting to kind of level up?
He does. He mentions the Saudi World Series, the SWS. It's like the Olympics of rental karting.
Whoa. The Olympics of rental karting, you say? Tell me more.
It's this huge global championship with both sprint races and endurance races. And get this, the top drivers from those national events get to compete in the SWS World Finals.
That's incredible. So you could go from your local go-kart track to the world stage. Talk about a dream come true.
I know, it's such a cool opportunity and really highlights how far you can take this passion.
It's inspiring, for sure. But for those of us who aren't quite ready to conquer the world stage just yet, what are some other ways to challenge ourselves in the rental karting world?
Omar's a big fan of competitions.
Yeah.
He talks about two main types, sprint races and endurance races.
Ah, so you've got your short bursts of speed and adrenaline versus the ultimate tests of stamina and strategy.
Exactly. Sprint races are all about individual speed and skill, showcasing those things you've been working on during those practice sessions.
Your time to shine. And then you've got those epic endurance races. Those sound intense.
They definitely separate the casual karters from the diehards. We're talking team events that can last anywhere from a couple of hours to a grueling 24 hours.
24 hours? Wow. I can barely handle a 30-minute workout class.
They're a true test of endurance, teamwork, and strategy. You've got to coordinate those pit stops, driver changes, manage your energy levels.
And make sure that cart doesn't fall apart.
Exactly. It's a team effort from start to finish.
So whether you're a lone wolf or a team player, there's a challenge out there for you. It's really cool how Omar lays out all these different avenues for competition. Okay, one last thing before we move on for those who are ready to take that leap from renter to owner. Any final words of advice from Omar?
He emphasizes that it's not a decision to be taken lightly.
Right, so it's not just about having a need for speed.
Exactly. He encourages aspiring owner karters to do their research, understand the ins and outs of kart maintenance, familiarize themselves with the different championships and what they require. It's a whole other level.
So knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Speaking of championships, Omar highlights two of the most prestigious in the world of karting, the Rotax Max Challenge and the IME X30.
Yeah.
Both offer those coveted national and international championships, giving you a chance to test your skills against the very best.
Okay, now we're talking big leagues.
Exactly. But as you can imagine, competing at that level requires a pretty serious financial commitment.
I bet. Give us a number. What kind of investment are we talking about here?
Omar says a competitive season in a championship like the Rotax Max Challenge can cost upwards of, get this, $50,000.
Okay, that's more than some people spend on their cars.
It's no joke.
Hmm.
And those costs, they cover everything: the cart, the engine, mechanic support, travel expenses, race entry fees.
That's a whole different ballgame.
It is. But for those who are truly passionate about the sport and have the dedication and resources to match, it can be an absolutely incredible experience.
Okay, so we've talked about how to drive, how to compete, but what about the wardrobe? I'm assuming you can't just rock up in your jeans and flip-flops. What gear does Omar recommend?
Safety first, always. Omar stresses the importance of a good helmet.
Makes sense. Even a minor bump in a go-kart could be a major headache without proper head protection.
Exactly. He says that for casual karting or rental karting, a standard helmet without all the fancy certifications will do. You can usually find one for around $100.
Okay, that's not too bad. But what about for those who are racing competitively? Are there different helmet requirements for official competitions?
Absolutely. If you're planning to participate in official races, you'll need a helmet that meets certain safety standards, usually FIA or SNELL certification.
Those are the real deal. And those certifications, they don't come cheap, I'm guessing.
Unfortunately not. A helmet that meets those requirements will set you back a bit more. We're talking anywhere from $600 to $700, depending on the brand and features.
Safety is definitely worth the investment, especially when those speeds are involved. Okay, we've got our helmets. What's next on our essential gear checklist?
Gloves. Omar emphasizes the importance of a good pair of gloves for grip and protection. Host. And don't forget a good pair of karting shoes. Trust me, those flimsy soles won't cut it. Omar recommends investing in a pair of karting boots, something with a thin sole for better pedal feel.
Karting boots, huh? Had no idea those even existed. So are we talking like those racing boots Formula One drivers wear?
Not quite as fancy.
Yeah.
But definitely designed specifically for the demands of karting. Thin soles for optimal pedal control, reinforced heels for support during heavy braking. They make a difference.
Who knew there was so much specialized gear involved? I'm learning so much. All right, anything else we need to complete our go-karting ensemble?
Omar suggests considering a rib protector. Might sound like overkill, but
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not like we're in a full contact sport here.
you'd be surprised how much those karts can jostle you around, especially if you're prone to bumping into things or other drivers. That rib protector can be a lifesaver.
Okay, better safe than sorry, I guess. And I'm assuming neck support is non-negotiable as well?
Absolutely. Omar really stresses neck protection, especially with those high-speed risks.
Safety first. Always. Any other insider gear tips that Omar revealed?
Oh, he's got a good one that I actually found super helpful. A balaclava.
A balaclava. Like those things skiers wear. Okay, maybe not the most stylish look for the go-kart track.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's not about fashion, it's about comfort. It's that thin hood that goes under your helmet and absorbs sweat. Trust me, after a few hot laps, you'll thank me. Keeps everything fresh and clean.
Practicality over fashion. I can get behind that. Okay, so we've got our gear sorted. We're all safety conscious. What other words of wisdom does Omar impart for aspiring go-karters? What sets those who succeed apart from the rest?
Omar emphasizes three things above all else: continuous learning, seeking feedback, and of course that physical fitness.
All right, so continuous learning. I'm guessing even the pros never stop trying to improve.
Exactly. Omar encourages drivers to constantly study the sport, watch those professional races, analyze their own performance. Always be on the lookout for those areas where you can improve. And for those looking to really up their game, I've been digging into this KTips training program,
Yeah, I've heard some buzz about that.
the Level 1 Go Kart training program.
Four wings to a faster you, huh?
That's the big promise, and we've got the course material right here, ready to dissect.
Let's dive in. What are they offering? Video lessons, I bet.
You nailed it. They've got video lessons, a driver logbook, even a whole textbook.
Whoa, a textbook. They're taking this seriously.
Seriously serious.
Yeah.
And the cherry on top, finish the program, you get an actual Level 1 certificate.
Now that's cool. Recognition for your effort. Love that.
Exactly. It's all over at KTips.org, Go Kart Training-program if you want to follow along. But the big question is it all hype?
Yeah, who's this really for? Will this program turn a complete newbie into a pro?
Well, according to the material, they designed it for beginners, A&D seasoned drivers who are trying to conquer a new track.
Interesting. So they acknowledge that even experienced drivers can benefit from a structured approach.
Exactly. But let's be honest, are we really going to pore over a textbook when there are videos to watch? Can we just skip to the good part?
The eternal question, can we shortcut our way to success?
Well, can we?
Based on what they emphasize here, it's about combining knowledge with action. Yeah, the videos are great, but nothing replaces actually being in that kart, feeling the track, making those mistakes.
And that's where the weekly one-on-one coaching comes in.
Absolutely. Having a coach, and not just any coach, we're talking a Qatar karting champion.
Right. Analyzing your every move on the track.
And helping you bridge that gap between theory and practice.
So how do those coaching sessions actually work?
From what I gather, you've got the videos, the textbook, which, by the way, goes pretty deep into the physics of karting, things like apex, slip angle.
Oh, yeah, getting all technical.
It's impressive, but it's not just book learning. You take that knowledge, hit the track, log your times, jot down your observations in the driver logbook.
Ah, so that's where the logbook comes in handy.
Exactly. And then you hop on a call with your coach, review everything, and get personalized feedback.
That's incredible. Having that kind of feedback is usually reserved for, like, professional racers, isn't it?
It is. It's like having a secret weapon in your quest for speed.
But 4 weeks, that seems, I don't know, a little rushed. Can you realistically make significant progress in that time frame?
It does sound tight. They recommend taking the full 4 weeks, letting everything sink in. But they also say that if you're really committed, have the time for more frequent track sessions, you can power through it in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, that's intense.
Intense, but doable, apparently. And that's where, again, that logbook becomes crucial, allows for a very data-driven approach.
No more guessing games.
Exactly. No more guessing games. You and your coach can pinpoint exactly where those precious milliseconds are hiding.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing, but let's be real. Will this program transform someone into the next Lewis Hamilton overnight?
Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's probably not going to happen overnight.
Darn.
This program isn't some magic bullet. What it does offer is a incredibly strong foundation. It equips you with the tools and techniques to really unlock your potential.
So it's more about maximizing what you already have.
Absolutely. But becoming the best, that takes, well, it takes more than just a program.
Yeah, it takes that raw talent, that natural instinct, right?
You got it. Plus, dedication, consistent practice, it all plays a part.
Makes sense. But let's say someone hits a wall, metaphorically speaking. That one corner they just can't seem to get right.
We've all been there.
What then? Does the program address that?
It does, and that's where having that direct line to your coach is invaluable. They're there to help you break down those challenges, adjust your approach, figure out what works best for you.
So it's all about personalized guidance.
Precisely. It's about tailoring the program to your individual needs and helping you overcome those hurdles.
This has been eye-opening.
Here's something to ponder. Think about any skill you've ever wanted to master. Could be playing an instrument, writing, maybe even karting.
Or podcasting.
Ha! Exactly. But think about how much of that mastery comes from pure, raw talent versus dedicated practice, good coaching, and maybe even a structured program like this. It's an interesting question, isn't it?
It really is. Makes you think about how much potential we all have just waiting to be unlocked.
Exactly. Food for thought.
And along those lines, he's a huge advocate for getting feedback, whether it's from the more experienced drivers or even from coaches.
Yeah, because sometimes we can't see our own blind spots. Having that external perspective can be invaluable.
Absolutely. It's easy to get stuck in our ways, but Omar really emphasizes that seeking guidance from others, from those who've been there, can make a world of difference.
Love that. Being open to learning no matter how much you think you know.
Exactly. And last but not least, physical fitness.
Right. Go-karting may not look like the most physically demanding sport, but I'm sure it takes a toll on the body.
Oh, you better believe it. Those G-forces are no joke. Especially during those high-speed turns and those endurance races, you need serious stamina. Omar recommends focusing on core work, cardio, and some good upper body strength training.
It's a full-body workout, disguised as a high-speed thrill ride. What's not to love?
I know, right? It's the best of both worlds. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the actual how-tos of go-karting, but there's this other resource that Omar talks about that we haven't really touched on yet, and it sounds incredible, especially for go-karters of all levels.
You're talking about the KTips Academy, right? I was hoping we'd get to that. It sounds like an amazing resource.
It is. Basically, it's Omar's way of sharing his knowledge and passion for karting with the world. He's got all sorts of resources available through the Academy, online courses, training programs, you name it.
Wow, so it's like having a personal go-karting coach right at your fingertips.
Exactly. He even does these live track help sessions, which is amazing.
Wait, seriously? Live coaching from a karting champ? That's amazing.
I know. It's incredible. And people from all over the world join in. They can ask questions, get personalized feedback.
That's unbelievable. Talk about dedication.
Right. He's really built this fantastic community of karting enthusiasts. It just shows how passionate he is about sharing his knowledge and helping others succeed in the sport.
I love that. So it doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone in the KTips Academy.
Absolutely. And get this, it's totally free to join.
Free! Did you hear that, everyone? Free expert go-karting advice. Talk about a no-brainer. Okay, before we get completely sidetracked, we were talking about all the valuable insights Omar offers in his book, Go Karting for Beginners, the KTips Way. What an incredible resource for anyone looking to improve their skills or just dive headfirst into this exhilarating world. Now, before we wrap things up, I have one last question for you, a fun one.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Hit me.
Imagine you get to design your ultimate go-kart track. Money's no object. You can get as creative as you like. What does your dream track look like?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I'd want a good mix of those high-speed straightaways where you can really open it up, but also some technical sections to keep things interesting.
The best of both worlds.
Exactly. Maybe a super long straightaway leading into a tight chicane. That'd be intense.
Oh, and a hairpin turn right after a blind rise. Now that would get the adrenaline pumping.
Yes. I love it. We need to make this happen.
Right. We could call it the KTips Speedway. Okay, listeners, your turn. We want to hear from you. What would your dream go-kart track look like? You know, it's amazing how much depth there is to go-karting. We've covered so much today. Everything from racing lines and braking techniques to the gear and even the mental game.
It's really fascinating. Omar's passion for the sport really shines through, and he does an incredible job of making all those nuances accessible to everyone.
He really does. Well, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your expertise with us.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
A huge thank you to all our listeners for joining us on this deep dive into the exciting world of go-karting. If you're feeling inspired to hit the track, be sure to check out Omar Aswat's fantastic book, Go Karting for Beginners, the KTips Way. We'll be sure to link to that and the incredible KTips Academy in the show notes. And until next time, keep those engines revving.